Mahabharata, Chapter 10, The Pandavas at Ekachakra, read by Nirvan Bajaj and Ekveer Bajaj. Mahabharata, Chapter 10, The Pandavas at Ekachakra. Ved Vyasa's epic on the Bharat race was first recited in public by his disciple Vaishampayan at the behest of the ageless seer Vyasa himself. The recital took place in the august presence of King Janamjay, great-grandson of the grandson of Vyasa, and the many learned sages who had assembled for Janamjay's Sarpasatra. The ninth session of our rendering of Vaishampayan's recital of Vyasa's Mahabharata narrated the adventures of the Pandavas after their escape from Varanavat. It concluded with their arrival at the house of a Brahman in Ekachakra, a nearby town. Vaishampayan then continued. The Pandavas, sage-like in appearance, lived in the house of the Brahman at Ekachakra and led the life of mendicants. And with their virtues bearing, they endeared themselves to the people of the town. At sunset, they would submit the alms they had collected to Kunti, and each would take their share apportioned to him by her. While one half always went to the mighty Bhima, the other was shared by the rest. In this manner, O monarch, the Pandavas lived there for some time. Then one day, it so happened that while the others went out seeking alms, Bhima stayed at home with Kunti. And Kunti heard a loud, distressing wail of sorrow coming from within the house. Then Kunti, O monarch, said to Bhima,
Beyond doubt, some terrible grief has befallen the Brahmin. We could help him. We would be rendering him a favor. Like those who live happily in others' house, I always think of the good I should do to him. He is a man who returns in increased measure a favor received.
Then Bhima said, Find out what his grief is and the source of it. However difficult the task, I shall apply myself to it. Then Kunti entered the inner chamber of the house and beheld the Brahman sitting downcast with his wife and daughter and son beside him. And she heard him say, Fie on the worldly life which is hollow and futile, which is rooted in pain and held in chains, which met is only misery. O my wife, I had wanted to move to some safer place, but you did not pay any heed to me then. You turned down my frequent requests, saying, I was born here and I grew up here, and so did my father. Love you for your kin turned you deaf to my words, and now ruin has descended on your kin. Or perhaps it is to be my own death. I have fallen to the dire calamity and I know of no escape. On hearing these words of the Brahman, O monarch, his wife said,
You are learned and you know that our human beings must die. It is useless grieving over the inevitable. I will myself go there.
At this, the Brahman cried out, I cannot abandon you. You are my helpmate in virtuous deeds. Maternal in your self-affecting love, you are also a God-given companion to me, and that mainstay of my life. The wife replied, Wise men of ethics should have decreed that women should never be slain and Rakshasas are said to follow ethical codes. Therefore, while the Rakshas will certainly kill a man, it is doubtful if he will kill a woman. Besides, having discharged my duties and having borne your child, I have fulfilled the wants of life. That holds no pain for me now. So it behoves you to send me to the Rakshas. Thus addressed by her, the Brahman embraced her and they wept in grief. Saddened by the grief of her parents, the daughter cried, Why do you weep as if you are bereft of all succor? Listen to me and do what you deem best. It is certain that my brother, tender in years, will perish if you leave him for the other world. The son, it is said, is one's alter ego, the wife's one's companion. Let me tread the path of duty and free you from this dilemma. Then the Brahman said, how can I abandon my innocent daughter, who is certain to bring me comfort and descendants and throw them salvation? The daughter replied, you have to give me away one day or other. Give me up now. And then all the three wept bitterly. Their son, beholding these words in a sweet way.
Weep not, father, nor you, O mother, nor you, O sister.
Then picking up a blade of grass, the child said,
with this I shall slay the Rakshas who gobbles up human beings.
He threw the grass away, acting to punch the Rakshas. The lip-sync words of the child brought joy to the others, though they were immersed in woe. Then Kunti, taking it as the opportune moment, approached the group and then said, I wish to know the cause of your woe to decide if it can be removed, and if so, how? The Brahman replied, O ascetic lady, your words match the goodness of people like you. But our grief is beyond human repair, and we deserve it because we continue to live in the realm of a wretched king. As our king is dull, dim-witted and disinterested, a mighty Rakshas named Baka, a cannibal, rules and protects our town and our land. We have no fear of enemies or any living creature, but the tribute he exacts is a meal of a cartload of rice, 2 buffaloes, and the man who takes them to him. Each householder has to send a meal through his turn, might come once in many years. Those who try to escape their turn are, along with their wives and children, slain and devoured by the Rakshas. It is now my turn. I have no wealth to buy a man to take my place, nor can I consign to the Rakshas those whom I hold dear. I see no way of escape from him. I shall go to him today with my family. Let him devour all of us together. Then Kunti said, I am loth to see your only son, a mere boy, or your only daughter, a pious one, or you or your wife go away. I have 5 sons. Let one of them go to the Rakshas with the quittance. But, O monarch, the Brahman remonstrated and said, I will never do that and save my life. Even the rude, the mean, would not do it. And then Kunti said, the Rakshas cannot slay my son. He is valorous and bears a charmed life. I have seen many Rakshas slain in their encounter with him. But do not disclose this to anyone, because curious seekers of skill will pester him. And if my son imparts the skill without his guru's sanction, then the skill will be blunted in effect. Thus, addressed by Kunti, O monarch, the Brahman and his wife agreed. Then Kunti and the Brahman asked Bhima to do the deed, and Bhima readily consented. At that juncture, the Pandavas arrived there with the arms they had received. And from Bhima's look alone, Yudhishthira knew that he was about to perform some mighty deed. He asked his mother in private, what is the deed that Bhima has set his mind on? Is it your command or of his own accord? Kunti told him of the deed and then said, it is at my command that he will embark on the great task of the good of the Brahman and the liberation of this town. Yudhishthira then said, O mother, abandoning one's son does not carry the sanction of the wise. By sacrificing your child for another's, you have acted against the precepts of the Vedas and the practice of the world. Has your discretion been blunted by calamities? Is your reasoning eroded? What prompts you to abandon Bhima, whose overpowering valor ever drained the terrified Duryodhana and the Shakuni of their sleep, and rescued from the mansion of fire, whose mighty arms assure us of peaceful sleep and promise us residence in our annexed kingdom? Kunti replied, you must not be anxious about Bhima, and my resolve was not the result of a fatigued brain. It was his strength of 1,000 elephants which carried all of you, each one as strong as an elephant, from Varanavat. And years ago, soon after he slept from my lap, his fall had crushed up a rock below. I know full well how the strong Bhima is assigned, and therefore have I assigned this task to him. Neither ignorance or greed for foolhardiness is behind my resolve. My virtuous deed is the outcome of thoughtful reasoning. The merit of the deed is twofold: recompense to the Brahman for our stay, and the discharge of a virtuous deed. A Kshatriya must protect one in distress. If he does not, so he is assured of a noble lineage and the respect of the kings. Yudhishthira then said, "Your deliberate decision, O mother, is indeed proper. Bhima will certainly slay the cannibal and return alive. But strive with the Brahman to keep this undisclosed to the people of the town." Then, as the night passed, Bhima took charge of the food for the Rakshas and set out of his abode. The powerful son of Pandu then entered the forest of the Rakshas, helping himself to the food and calling out, "Baka! Oh Baka, Baka, Baka!" Immense in size and strength, red all alike in eyes, hair and beard, Baka was fearsome behold. And he came with an earth-splitting tread, and beholding Bhima eating his food, the Rakshas came up in fervid fury and said,
"Who is this villain eating up my meal in my very presence, as if he is keen to be sent to the abode of Yama?"
Bhima, O monarch, only smiled in derision and continued to yield. Beholding this, the cannibal let out a terrible roar.
Yeah!
And with upraised arms rushed towards Bhima, intending to kill him. But Bhima, in utter contempt, went on eating the Rakshas's food. Overcome by rage, the Rakshas brought down his fists on Bhima from behind. But Bhima continued to eat without so much as a glance at him. Then the Rakshas, beyond himself with anger, uprooted a tree and hurled it at Bhima, who, having finished the rice, stood cheerfully ready for a fight. Bhima playfully caught the tree in his left hand and threw it back at the Rakshas. Then, O monarch, the Rakshas uprooted many more trees and hurled them at Bhima. And Bhima smote him with as many in return. That terrible combat between the prince and the cannibal raged so fierce that the forest around was soon denuded of trees. Then the Rakshas sprang upon Bhima and seized him. The mighty hero also had him in the clutches. As he began dragging him violently, the cannibal in turn pitted his force against that of Bhima. The very earth seemed to tremble under the force unleashed by the two. Then, beholding that the cannibal was overcome by fatigue, Bhima laid him low and pressed him down with his knees. Then he seized his neck and bent him double with all his might. The cannibal expelled a roar of pain and fell dead. And the kinsmen of the Rakshas, terrified by the roar, came out with their attendants. When Bhima saw the terror-struck group, he confronted them and said, "Never shall you kill a human being. If you do, then you too will be slain like Baka." The Rakshasas consented, O monarch, to abide by the commandments of Bhima. Then Bhima carried the lifeless cannibal to the town gates, deposited him there unobserved by anyone, and returned to the Brahman's house. The next morning, O monarch, as they came out of the town, their people saw the Rakshas dead on the ground, glutted in gore. They went back and spread the tidings. And thousands of men, young and old, with their wives and children, thronged the spot to see Baka dead and were amazed at the superhuman deed. They offered prayers to the deities and then assented whose turn it had been to carry the meal. Then they went to the house of the Brahman and questioned him. He said to those importunate men, "While I was lamenting my fate with my relatives, a Brahman, noble in spirit and a master of occult lore, came to me and said, 'I shall carry the food for that brute today. Do not fear for me.' It was he who took this food into the forest. This act of public weal is indeed done by him." Then, O monarch, the citizens, filled with wonder, celebrated a festival in honor of the Brahman who had brought them such abundant joy. Then they returned to their homes, and the Pandavas continued to dwell in the house of the Brahman and Ekachakrapura. And thus ends the 10th session of our rendering of Vaishnampayan's recital of Vyasa's immortal Ityasa, the Mahabharata. Stay tuned for the next chapter, which is Mahabharata chapter 11, and it is called Enter Draupadi. Please subscribe to this channel, like, share and comment on this video. Thank you and namaste.